We have come to the end of the day of questioning of Guy Taylor at the Undercover Policing Inquiry, and we're joined with Guy Taylor, the founding member of Globalized Resistance, which was infiltrated by the undercover police officer HN 118, who used the cover name Simon Wellings. What have you made of your experience of giving evidence to the Undercover Policing Inquiry?
That's fucking exhausting. Yeah, I thought the questions were relevant. I got across what I wanted to say. I didn't have too much to add at the end there because I think it was quite thorough. So yeah, I was quite pleased with the way today went, really.
Yeah, you were. I mean, we've been through throughout the day. We've done lots of recap videos through the day. So I just start off with that last little bit, which we really kind of talked about the what he did next. I guess what Simon Wellings did after you exposed him and confronted him at that meeting in the Royal Festival Hall. He didn't go away, which was, I mean, which is kind of strange. You'd think any sort of professional police undercover unit might have withdrawn an officer when they've been exposed in such a blatant way, but it appears he didn't withdraw from the field, though he claims that he went on to infiltrate Dissent. I mean, as someone who's involved in Dissent, I only ever met him once, right at the end of his deployment, just in passing for about 30 seconds. Certainly, I don't think anybody else remembers him at all. But just reflecting on the fact that there was this suggestion that you'd somehow he claims you're going to let him fuck up the opposition, basically. I mean, it's an insane sort of premise, but I was wondering if you would like to say something about that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I don't think I didn't know that he had gone to Dissent, like most of Dissent didn't know either. I certainly, if I'd known that, I would have definitely spoken to the people I was in touch with in Dissent. I mean, there's one experience of this whole inquiry is that everyone's in it together. Obviously, in the past, there's I think quite silly arguments between the SWP and different parts of the movement and all that stuff. I mean, it was something which hit us, as soon as we had the first conference. But I mean, basically, it's about us versus the cops, and we were big enough and wise enough to not really fall for that. So the idea that we'd want it to screw up the opposition was nonsense, really. But most of what he wrote was nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, so many. It's been a hallmark of so many undercover officers' reports of self-aggrandizement and exaggeration of what the group that he's spying on is doing. But I kind of feel like Sam Wellings took it to a bit of another level, really. His own the suggestion that he was so much at the heart of everything, and that there was so much serious activity going on, really starks in contrast to actually the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's been proven today, hasn't it? I mean, on the stuff with the activists and the suicide vest stuff, which we can't mention any names, quite rightly so, but basically, he had 3 reports which I quoted today saying, he had someone had this mad idea and we spoke him down. And every time he repeated the story, his role got bigger and bigger. And at the end of it, it was this suicide vest actually appeared, which has never existed in any way. And so I think that was probably to sex it up because he was trying to plead for the continuation of the SDS at the end of the whole thing, and I think the cracker was the fact that the recording of the phone call that we all heard had a mistake in it. I mean, it was less Detective Inspector Simon Wellings and more Inspector Clouseau, really. I mean, he made so many mistakes, and when he wasn't making mistakes, he lied to make his role look bigger, and it was madness. I mean, I really do think it's a very similar role to Armand in Havana. I mean, I mentioned that today. I mean, there's quite an instructive film when you come to consider Simon Wellings.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's been referenced by a few people about a few of the undercover deployments. I just wanted to explore one thing about when you did confront him about it, and the fact that so many of us hadn't even considered the idea that there might be a specialist police unit that was sending undercover officers into groups, and it was considered, oh well, he's been an informer in some way. And I mean, I think a lot of people know, because we're now 16 years into knowing about the existence of the SDS, well, the existence of undercover police anyway, and the way in which they were deployed for years on end. That people might forget that none of us thought that this sort of thing was possible. And like, you know, that, yeah, we thought, well, there would be informers, but we really thought they were genuine people who were being blackmailed by the cops, you know, and I mean, that was the sort of the given idea of what it might be.
Yeah. And when we confronted Wellings, he cried. I mean, like, you know, they were genuine tears running down his face. Now, probably through fear he's going to be put back on traffic duty in Norfolk or whatever. But I mean, like, he was upset, and that's it took a long time before I could even. I mean, even when this inquiry started, a colleague at work said you should apply for status in this thing. I just didn't think it was possible. I mean, like, I can understand in some ways starting off the whole thing in 1968 when you had in Europe, you know, the Red Brigades, or you had the Baader-Meinhof gang, and there was violence on the left. But I mean, like, if they thought that was a possibility in 68, by about 1972, they must have decided it ain't going to happen here and wrap the whole thing up. The fact that it grew and the fact that they sustained it for that long is to the absolute condemnation of the Metropolitan Police. They wasted all that money, and to what end? I mean, I don't think they got anything valuable out of that deployment. I mean,
I think that I mean, the thing is, I think from the very start, it was never about violence. It was about people who mobilise on the street, holding banners, standing outside shops with placards. I mean, this unit, throughout its history, there have been times where undercover officers have got close to more serious activity. Whether it was, I mean, you had Peter Fredericks back in the 70s, who was approached by somebody from the USSR embassy. He was told to withdraw. Don't go anywhere near that. That's far too serious. I mean, we even had when Carlos Saraki last week said, you know, he was infiltrating no platform, but he was infiltrating the Socialist Party side of it. When they went to the Bradford riots and the anarchist side of it went off and did stuff, he made sure he stayed well away from that because he knew it was going to be dangerous, and waited for the journey home so that he could report what they said they got up to in his reports. None of these officers were going anywhere near anything violent, and if there was anything violent, they were finding a way to stay as far away from it as they possibly could.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he was very unlikely to find anything like that in globalized resistance anyway. That's not what we were about, and it was absolutely obvious to anyone that even in the passing thing. And it was funny how, you know, they did, even the security services did a risk assessment on us and said there was no chance of violence. So their very justification is completely undermined by their own words. So today has just been a case of pointing out the inadequacies, the inconsistencies, and the contradictions between what they said, and at different times, and showing the whole thing to be a complete farce.
Yeah, there was a couple of times when you're questioning that you kind of you mentioned something which I think a lot of people who maybe weren't familiar with those times back then kind of miss out on, is that these undercover police didn't exist in a vacuum. That at the same time we had undercover officers in our movements, we also had the forward intelligence teams following people around all the time. There was a lot of overt policing that was taking place, which I think if anybody who's not been involved in activism would be quite shocked at the level of intimidation that existed. And I think, like, you know, when we talk about, like, well, they wasted all this money. I mean, they were wasting a lot of money doing that kind of stuff very overtly through the same time period.
Yeah, I remember one time was in, well, it was 2005. There was one of the pre-meetings of the G8. They had a finance ministers meeting in the QE2 conference centre opposite Parliament, and we had a little thing in. It was a Tuesday morning, I remember, and it was just we had a 7-person protest, and it was basically people dressed as Reservoir Dogs. So I was wearing a suit for one reason, and that day I walked from Whitehall up to Oxford Circus, and then got a bus to Euston, and then got a tube to Bank, and all the time I had 2 uniformed coppers with it, and I wanted to show them I wasn't intimidated, so I got to know their first names and did the Guardian crossword with them, and basically, yeah, they just followed me around until I got to Brick Lane, and then I went into a internet cafe, told them that I just bought 3 hours on the internet, and they fucked off at that point. But I mean, like, that kind of thing was very frequent in my time at Globalized, and it was just commonplace, and it wasn't for information, it was definitely for intimidation. And yeah, I decided I wouldn't be intimidated by it, but yes, a lot of people were, and understandably so.
Yeah, no, a huge number of people were, and I think, like, And it wasn't just, I mean, like, one of the things that we've seen from, as well as this obsession with violence, is this misunderstanding about the way in which, the collective nature of leadership that existed within the groups we were part of. And there's this thing of, like, you're constantly referred to as the de facto leader. They don't accept the fact there's a steering committee or anything like that. But, this intimidation didn't just happen to people they thought were de facto leaders. I mean, I know some people who were just so very, very tangentially involved, just came along to a protest and then were getting followed home for the next 2 days. The intimidation levels were really significant.
Yeah, I mean, I finished up today talking about one female member who'd been followed home. I mean, like, she was unaware of that. I'm still in touch with that activist, and she didn't know, and she was quite shocked when she found out. And that is the type of thing they do, which is really fucking creepy. I mean, like, it wasn't a million miles away from Sarah Everard. So, I mean, like, that type of thing they do is just, it's just so insensitive and so fucking sexist and misogynist. It's horrible.
It really is. I think there's something, because there's no record of Simon Wellings having any sort of sexual relationships, and when he was deployed undercover. I think people might miss out on the deeply misogynistic nature of so much of what he did do, and like it's there in the reportings, it's there in the way, like you say, about the following a female activist home, and like, there's something deeply institutionally misogynistic about this unit and about the police in general.
Absolutely. I think what we'll see next week when Wellings comes along to give evidence is that he will try and be the respectable one, the intelligent one, the one that didn't shag anyone, the one who didn't get into any of that situation. But the same problems were there, kind of written through him like writing through a stick of rock. All the horrible intolerances and the oh, sorry, I'm so knackered. The absolute disdain of people, really. I mean, like, just treating people, treating lefties, treating activists like pieces of shit to kick through on your way through to a better pay packet and all the rest of it. And I might have been 100 points. Who knows? I mean, like,
yeah. I mean, like all that the expense accounts. The per diems he was getting for his foreign trips. I mean, we know that these undercover officers were the best paid Metropolitan Police officers of their era. They were on more than the senior members of staff. I mean, that's why he was crying. He was going to lose out on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, I think on that New York trip, we had a very nice place to stay. We had a really plush flat in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and he stayed there with us. But he still pocketed, I think it was $1,500 worth of expenses on the whole thing. Again, in Seville, we only got the expenses from 2 of his overseas trips. He did at least 5 with us. He went to Geneva, he went to Brussels, he went to Copenhagen. He went to Seville and New York. Oh, and Paris. He went to the ESF. So that's six overseas trips. A lot of money in that. Probably near enough 10 grand from that. It's just quite shocking the amount of money they were milking from it. Plus the fact he didn't travel alone, did he? We had a cover officer hot on his tails. And I know that the cover officer even rented a car in Seville. So I mean, like, it really does mount up. And obviously, previously we've heard from Saraki and people who booked holidays and charged them to the Metropolitan Police. This time it was to meetings where he would have zero impact. I mean, like, the bloke was thick. He didn't have any idea of the politics. His research on globalized resistance was probably a one-sider on it's a front for the SWP and all this stuff, and no idea of the politics behind activism and why people are involved. So it left him wanting when people tried to talk to him, and that's why he was instantly forgettable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it comes back to that thing you said earlier on, where today, where he talked about being like one of your closest friends when he was deployed, which was like laughable. But also, I mean, we spoke about it earlier in one of the other videos when I was with Sean, that these undercover officers, they don't like anybody, they don't like each other, they don't like their wives, they don't seem to be, they don't know how to interact with people who are being genuine to each other and friendly and nice. I mean, we heard it from Jim Boyling when he gave evidence a couple of weeks ago. He was like, oh, the people in the alternative society, they treat each other with a level of love and respect that is unknown outside of that world. And it's like, no, mate, you've just never had mates. You've never had fucking mates, and you don't know how to interact with it. You know, I mean, there's something deeply pathetic about them, really.
Yeah, I've always worried about people who become police anyway, but the police that become undercover police, there's something seriously fucking wrong with them, isn't there? I mean, like, to want to make a life of lying and deceit is just stunning. And you know, the thing is with Wellings, and I'm sure with most of the other ones, you know better than I do, but I mean, you know, that lying and deceit continues to their families, it continues to their superiors, it continues to everyone in their lives, and yeah, they'll quite rightly be left with no mates, no one to rely on, no one around them, and good.
Serves them right. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long day, and I'm sure you want to get to the pub, but just quickly, I mean, like, there are lots more activists who are due to give evidence to the inquiry. Have you got any advice for anybody who's going to be coming and giving evidence?
I think it's a matter of preparing. I mean, like, knowing what you're talking about, and I mean, like, I've had a huge amount of documents served to me, and much more than a lot of other people, and it's been hard and it's been wearing, but I've read them again and again, and basically just try and preempt questions so you're kind of prepared on that issue. I want to give praise to Roger Giffen, who gave me some advice on doing this. Thank you, Roger. And yeah, and I think there's you know, if you're a call participant, you're not on the WhatsApp list or whatever, get involved, because there's a lot of support, and it's a great group of people actually showing each other support and advice and all the rest of it. So yeah, enter into that, get involved in that, and yeah, and don't fear it. Just go and know what you want to say and say it, basically.
Well, I think you definitely did that. I mean, you were really very blatantly across the detail. You brought up some of the references to particular reports, which like showed that you really did know your stuff, and like things which the inquiry had, like, I think, quite sloppily sort of like not brought up. I think they had plenty of opportunity. Those two things at the end, particularly about no to ID, you know, an organization that, as you say, you know, included some fairly right-wing elements that has not been mentioned at all at the inquiry before. The fact there was a report on them is really interesting, and like something which they really should have highlighted, and they didn't. So I think it was really good that you managed to do that. But yeah, I mean, I'll let you go to the pub, but is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Probably, but I can't think.
No,
I need beer.
Yeah, fair enough. I just want to quickly say, I mean, I think, you know, obviously I was involved with Dissent back at the same time, you know, as this era. So I was a lot of these same things with a different sort of group. And I think that this process of being involved in the undercover policing inquiry has shown really how little we had indifferences between us, and really the cops don't see us as any different. They also, from 68 onwards, they see it as one unbroken line of one group of people who are all anti-police, anti-state. And I mean, I just really wondered if you felt the same, really, of that, like, if we can like get over those differences between us, we can build a much better movement.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Even back in the day, I was meeting and discussing with various people from the autonomous movements, from the Wombles, from Dissent, and what have you, different. And I mean, like, it's never been a problem for me. I mean, plus the fact I left the SWP in 2010, so I mean, like, but then I mean, like, a lot of my friends are still in the SWP, and I still got time for them, and we'll work with them. So yeah, let's make sure our side, you know, shows a proper unity and moving forward. So.
It's a great one to end on. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back there's no hearing tomorrow. Chris Nine was meant to be giving evidence, but totally understandably, I mean, I don't know the exact reasons why, but obviously he's got a fairly high profile case ongoing to do with the Palestine mobilization and the very current police repression of that. But we'll be back again on Wednesday with two witnesses. Noel Douglas, who was here earlier on, who was part of the same group of Globalized Resistance that we heard a lot about today, and also MT, who is the activist who was fingered by Simon Wellings as being the person who was responsible for this insane plan of using a suicide bomb on a fake suicide vest on the Israeli Prime Minister. So tune in for that on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, we'll be hearing from Patricia Da Silva, who's the cousin of Jean-Charles Mendes, who was murdered by Met Police. So yeah, even though tomorrow's off, there's still plenty on this week. So please join in when you can. Thanks for joining us. Please like and share these videos. Leave a comment if there's anything you want to say. But we're off to the pub. See you all again soon.